Up YouTube. So in this video today, I want to have a chat with you guys about the churn rate. Now what I mean by that is I think every service-based industry comes across this, and what it is that every year you will lose X amount of customers due to basically unforeseen things that sort of come out of nowhere. You know, so you could have people that move, people that sort of die, go into a home, you know, people that change their mind, people that you don't do a good enough job for. It does happen. That's very subjective. I'm sure most of us will, you know, agree it's the other way, but in my experience, it's the littlest things that you don't do, that you don't offer. It could be that people get you in and basically use you just to get the garden done, to tidy up before the friends, etc, etc. It's the churn rate. It happens. I think, you know, you'll look at it, what would you say, customer a month, 10 customers a year, 5 customers a year, you know, 2 a season, 1 a season. I'd say for me, traditionally it's probably been a couple a year. If anything, it's been more me getting rid of people. One season it was about 7 or 8 by the time I'd done my little purge of customers. I remember early on in YouTube I did a video talking about where I lost 3 customers in 1 week. If memory serves, one of them was she got evicted, one of them she was moving, and one of them was, I put my price up for a £5 because she decided that she didn't want to cut in for 6 weeks. So I put an extra £5 on and she kicked off about it. Now when you first start your business, it's easy to let this bother you. It's easy to sort of, you know, let it get in your head basically. But you know, from years say 1 to 3, it really wound me up. It really wound me up. Now it still happens, like I said. So this year is probably the most I've lost. Well, the end of last year and this year has been the most customers I've lost up until date to death, illness, going into a home. Like I said, it's the most I've ever known it for my business. I find it goes 2 ways. Sometimes when people die, it's like, right, once a month or we'll take over, you know, they just want to get the house sold, and it's amazing. I've had it last year. A lady was dead on a Monday and the house, you know, they'd had the pictures taken by Friday. You know, you could say that's not nice, you can say that's quick, that's sudden. How I look at it, you know, justifying it for them maybe is that, you know, she was on her way out for months and months and they just want it wrapped up now. Who knows? But sometimes people, and I've experienced this, people are really good. One customer said to me, you know, Luke, your father's passed away, that's a bad thing for us, but we don't want a bad thing to happen to you, so we want you to come every fortnight, do exactly what you did, keep on top of it for us. And they did, and they honoured that even throughout the winter. It was a monthly visit. You know, they were really good people. I couldn't fault them at all. Not everybody's like that, unfortunately. And I think once you sort of go through this, you understand. And now if I lose a customer, so I've talked about, you know, passing away, moving away, stuff like that. They are what they are. For me, the real sort of churn rate is the one-offers that want a fortnightly visit that don't. You know, the amount of the golden promise people where they'll say, oh yes, I need a gardener, I need somebody to look after my property, I need, you know, all this sort of stuff. And they'll have you in for once to do it, and then you'll never see him again. And again, that to me really frustrates me. But now I just look at it and think, well, it is what it is. You know, it's like supermarkets. Well, I don't know if a little average corner shop would do this, but I suppose they should do, really, just the same as, you know, food industry, whatever, where it's a certain percentage of what they turn over will get lost to, you know, theft and loss, basically. Sainsbury's, I'm sure I read somewhere that their loss to theft is over £400 million a year, and it's the nature of the beast. I'm sure Sainsbury's have put as many things into possible to make that not happen, but it's always going to happen, and it's part and parcel of them doing business. Just the same as your little corner shop, he must know that a certain amount is going to get lost, stolen, destroyed, whether it's from the staff, whether it's from the daughter knocking over a crate of pickled onions, whether it's from the thieving little shits going in there and filling the pockets when boss man's in the back, or he's got his back turned. It happens, it's the nature of the beast. Just the same with us, it happens, you know. And I think, so how do you make it where it doesn't happen? Well, I think the quoting process teaches you, well, shows you a lot. Use the quoting process to get, not to get to know the customer, but to, well, suss them out, basically. You can almost work out if they're going to have you on, if they're going to take the mick. You know, you can sort of, you can feel it, for want of a better word, basically, what they're going to be like. And it's up to you. Don't let if a shit customer is pretending to be a good customer, don't fall for it. If you fall for it and they're saying to you, oh yes, we want a fortnightly visit or a regular gardener, you know, I find a lot of people, especially this time of the year, they're saying to me, oh, we can't get anybody to do the work, can't get anybody. It's like as if they aren't interested in us gardeners. And you go there and you can sort of see why, in a way. It's either them or it's the job. And how, you know, how do you deal with that? Well, if it's them, it's up to you if you want to work for them. You know, you're perfectly entitled to say, look, I'm busy. There was a job, somebody approached me the other day, and they struck me as odd straight away. I was trimming around a lawn, and you've got to be so observant in this industry, but I was in my own world. I had my sunnies on, I had my headphones on, and I was trimming, and I was coming round the wall, I'd gone all the way around the perimeter, and I looked up and I could see these two people just literally leaning over the wall watching me, you know, and they were like a couple of foot, 3 foot from the strimmer, and I was like, Jesus Christ, what the you know, what are you doing? And I says to him, I says, look, if ever you see somebody strimming, at the very least alert them, or keep the back, you know, keep your back to them. You know, I try to be as observant as I can. And anyway, so that struck me as odd. And they said to me, they need somebody to cut the grass. They asked me, how are you with overgrown gardens? Fine, let me have a look at it. Next question, how are you with dog's mess? And I did go and look at it, and as soon as I saw it, it's not a job for me. And it's not so much the height of it, it was what you'd find in there, what mess you'll come across, what amount of dog mess, you know, you name it. Like I said, you know, you just don't want it, really. So, you know, you don't have to take the job on, you don't have to take the work on. My advice, if it is that, you know, you have got that feeling, you know, they're going to be a bit funny, or they're going to have you over, or it's not going to be a regular job and they're offering a regular job, well, price it accordingly, price it a one-off. Don't fall for it. Don't say, you know, if they're offering you a regular cut and you're thinking, well, this garden looks like it's never had a regular cut done on it in its life, you know, don't sort of say, oh yes, I'll do them a discount, I'll do them a deal. I think we're very good sometimes at trying to, and it's not just me, I used to think it was just me, but it isn't, of course. It's a lot of us genuinely try and help people. The amount of times where you'll see people where they'll complain about customers and bad experiences, and they'll all sort of say, I've tried to help him. I've tried to, you know, do him a good turn. I tried to do him a good price. You know, did extras, looked after him. And unfortunately, people are very good at picking up on that. They're very good at finding people like us with values like that, and what they do is they just home in on it, unfortunately, and they just take advantage. And it really does, you know, unfortunately frustrate me, you know, to a high end. But it's up to me if I pick up on that and fall for it. Basically, I try my best not to fall for it. Happens every so often. You'll take a job on and you'll think to yourself, oof, you know, this is going to be a good job, and then they'll come out. I took a job on start of the season. It was a little roadside verge, a little roadside cafe, and nothing against the owners. Again, sometimes you've got to look at why. I personally think it's the catering industry at the moment, from what I can gather. You know, they've got the rising costs of food, they've got the cost of living, the utilities, you know, you name it, it's all sort of stacked up in their favour or against them, basically. And I think whatever this cafe could do to cut the costs, they have. So they took me on, and then they ended up cancelling because a family member come and did it for him. Or, well, I don't think he does it as often as I do or as good as I do, but it saved them the £50 every 4 weeks. So, like I said, that's another thing I've noticed this season. I genuinely don't think there's as much money around as there used to be. I've noticed customers are tightening the belts a little bit more. Not so much the tight people. Well, the tight people will always be tight. I've got customers that are on my round that are tight. You know, I know that for them, it's hard enough for them to give me the £20 for me to cut the grass because they're tight. You know, but it's the people I'm on about are the people that aren't tight, that are normally very generous. They're normally very sort of, you know, get it done, spend it. You know, even them, they've cut back a lot this season. So, like I said, it's just one of them at the end of the day. You've just got to sort of factor it in. You know, like I said, it's what you do at the end of the day, but you've got to cover your costs. If it is you feel like they're going to have you on, they're offering you a deal of the century. Oh, you can do my garden, I'll recommend you. I've heard this a lot. If you do a good job for me, I'll recommend you to my friends. Well, why, you know, why is that the acid test? You know, why not just treat as you find and say to people, oh yeah, you know, this bloke's good, or I found him. But anyway, so like I said, it is what it is. It's part of running a business. You will lose people. I touched upon it earlier, and I'll finish up on it now. Is every single customer that I lose or gets rid of me, you know, obviously if they die, they move away, they go into a retirement home, I can't change that. But if a customer says to me, we don't need you anymore, we found somebody else, we don't need, and to be fair, that's the most recent ones. I had one this season where she was a recommendation. I took her on and I rung her up to see what work she wanted me doing, and she said, well, it's just a bit of everything. And I explained to her that I struggle with the weeding because of what I heard you up at the end of the year. And she said, okay. She said, well, I've just got lawns, hedges, and there's a bit of border work. I went to it and it was more border work than it was hedges and shrubs and grass. Fine. So I explained again, told her basically that, you know, I gave her a price for the work to be done, and I'll be honest with you, it wasn't as bad as I thought, and I was confident that I will get basically the whole thing done and dusted for her, keep it nice and tidy. So I gave her a price for it. She agreed. First visit, went around. I could already tell she was going to be a bit of a nightmare after the first visit. Do this, do that, fill the bird bath up, fill the bird seed up, do this, you know, all these little extras. It all adds up when it comes to time. But she was fine, she loved it, so relieved to found somebody, blah blah blah. Second visit, same again, but this time round she said to me, "Do you do weeding?" And I'm thinking to myself, well, yes, because we've done 2 lots now. The weeding's been done both times. You've never mentioned it before up until now. I thought that was a little bit funny. Phone call off the daughter at about 8:30 at night, and she said, "Oh, just letting you know, my mother doesn't need a gardener anymore." I said, "Okay, so that's no problem. Yes, we found somebody for her. The next door neighbour has recommended a new gardener." That's a bit of a contradiction. I said, "Okay," I said, "there's a problem with the service." And she says, "Oh wow," she says, "it's underneath the hedge. There were so many clippings." I says, "Well, I didn't explain that I had trouble with the bending down the foot." I says, "There wouldn't have been a lot." "Oh no, it's the small bits. It took me over an hour." And I said, "Well, I'm ever so sorry about that, but you should have mentioned it to me and I'd come back." And that was on the first visit. No mention of it on the second visit. "Oh well, no, well, you see that I shouldn't have to, you see." And you could see where the conversation's going. I says to her, "Okay," I says, "no problem." I said, "At least we had a good go at trying to do my best for you." And she said, "Oh well, no, you did an excellent job." And anyway, so the person who recommended me, we got talking to him, and he basically said she is a bit of a fussy bugger and she's tight. So looking at that, I think some people will say you're making excuses for yourself, but I genuinely think you've got to look at the bigger picture sometimes. And if the bigger picture's saying to you that they're tight, they're tight. There has been times where I haven't been the right fit for a customer. I haven't been the right sort. So I'm not. My pride, how I run and operate my business, is I take pride in getting the jobs done as quickly, as efficiently as possible. I'll be honest with you, and you've all got to ask yourself this: are you 100% gardener, or are you a 95% gardener? And what I mean by that is to bash off all 100% of exactly what that customer wants and exactly what that garden needs. That is completely different to being a 95% gardener, where 95% of it's done. I always find, like anything, 95% of the work is a job, but the extra 5% seems to take way longer than the rest of the actual job. You could be doing the borders and the shrubs and all that sort of stuff, but that little 5%, weeding behind the bushes, weeding behind the shrubs, all these like little tiny jobs, that's what adds up, and that's what takes the time. And I'll be honest with you, obviously if that's dictated by the customer, the finish that they want, but I'm a 95% gardener. I want to go in, concentrate on the big stuff, get the lawns done, get the shrubs done, get the hedges done, you name it, get everything done and dusted, nice as possible for them, and then the 5%, well, I'll be honest with you, it's not that it gets hidden and forgotten about, but it sort of blends in. And I've had it where people, they want that 5% extra, they want that 100%, and maybe if it's quoted for that 100%, but even then, are we 100% garden, or are we a 99%? Because let's face it, the easiest thing in the world is to pick fault. You can do any single job ever, and I'm telling you what, the easiest thing to do is to pick fault. That's been missed, that's not been done. And again, I've had that where the customers sort of wanted the full shebang basically, and they haven't got it. I've just took on a job, and I've got a feeling that this customer's going to be like this, so it'll be interesting. She used to have a bloke, and I never talked money with the previous, as in about the previous gardener. I never sit there and say, "Oh, what was your previous bloke?" It's not really my business, but sometimes they drop you hints. So she said like he was a handy person, so he wasn't a gardener, but he was a handy person. She said he was a retired gentleman, but he used to do 3 hours every 2 weeks for her. Now either that garden looks like a new pin, because that's what the 3 hours would dictate, or he, you know, basically potted. And it's not a huge garden. I can't understand how somebody can spend 3 hours. I can, in the sense that they are doing 100% and they're like literally, you know, pulling every single, you know, looking behind every plant and like snip, you know, hand tools. But we'll see off this customer. And I did explain to her that I work a lot different to that. You know, for me it's going to be getting the, you know, everything done for you, but in the quickest and most efficient manner. So we will see on that, like I said, guys. So that's my little chat on the churn rate. Let me know if you've noticed that. Let me know if it increases. It does go up and down every so often, but like I said, don't let it get to you. Don't let it sort of dictate, and, you know, don't change your business. You know, I always think, look at the bigger picture. If all your customers are complaining that you're expensive, you probably are expensive. If all of your customers, or loads of your customers, say you've done a shit job, you've probably done a shit job. But if one person says you've done a bad job, you've ripped me off, you're trying it on, well, it's them, isn't it, in this situation. So have a good day, guys. As usual, keep on gardening.